Now in today's video, we're going to take a look at my team selection ahead of game week 2 and of course discuss any potential transfer targets and of course my captaincy for the upcoming game week. Now of course, before we dive into today's video, if you do enjoy any of the content that you see on the channel, please be sure to like, comment and subscribe as we're trying to hit 17,500 subscribers before the first international break, and honestly it would be absolutely immense if of course we could achieve that goal. As you can see on screen right now is my team and what it scored in game week 1, and it's a pretty disastrous game week 1. There's no getting around it. It was a really disappointing score. 44 in the end was not an ideal score, probably one of the lowest I think I've ever had playing FPL for a couple of years now. So yeah, not a great score off the bat. However, I'm not too worried. I've been in the position last year where it was a lot worse. It was 5.6 come, of course, game week 6. And we still have managed to achieve a top 10k finish. So I'm not worried about where we're currently positioned. We've got a lot of good players within the team that are proven Premier League players. And I think, you know, give it a few more weeks and, you know, they'll score quite well over that time period. Probably a little bit unlucky as well. Bruno was very close to hitting DEFCON. That'd have been a couple extra points. Tarkowski was robbed of a clean sheet, really. It was never a penalty, was it? So, you know, we could have got ourselves an extra 5 points there with him being on 1 bonus at the time of that. For Bergen as well, losing a clean sheet in the 96th minute of that game. Like, a little bit of luck goes our way. We come away with a better score. We come away with a decent rank and position. But, hey-ho, it's game week 1. I'd rather have the bad luck now and get it out of the way and start to get some better luck as we progress throughout the season. But hey-ho, I'm still happy with how the team is looking. Of course, if you're thinking, that doesn't look like fantasy football, you know, the normal website. Well, it's not, because it's Fantasy Football Hub's website, and I much prefer it than the UI that FPL have gone for this season. It's absolutely an immense tool. We're going to show some more features off when we come to my team selection in a bit as well, discussing what it's got, the predicted points, the fixture tracker, so many amazing bits of kit. Of course, if you want to go and check it out for yourself, I will leave a link to their website. Like I said, it helped me achieve a top 10k finish last season. I'm hoping the website again can massively help me achieve it again this season. So of course, if you want to go and check it out, link in the description of today's video. So I wanted to, before of course we dive into some transfer targets that I am looking at for game week 2, just give you some advice really, because I know a lot of people are probably panicking where their team is, that they didn't do very well, or they're a little bit worried, right? And that's perfectly acceptable. You've had a bad week, you're a little bit reactionary, you want to maybe just take a little bit of a step back and reflect on your team. If you're happy, like me, I'm pretty happy with my team. There's some good fixtures coming up. There's a reason I selected all the players I did from game week 1. I knew that I was going to be happy with this team for a long period of time, and I have to just stick with the process. Of course, in a few game weeks, if it's still not working, then that is where we start to make some moves, some transfers. Maybe a wild card as well if it's really gone down the pan. But this is my key advice for you guys heading into game week 2. It is only one game week of data we're working with. It is so easy to judge a pick and think that is going to be the narrative for the course of the season. It might be, you know, Semenyo got 2 goals. That's it. He's going to be the best player in the Premier League this season. It's probably not going to be the case, is it? It is way too early to judge those long-term picks. The likes of Cole Palmer, the likes of Bruno Fernandes, I guarantee are probably going to be up there as some of the top scoring players this season. So just take a little bit of a step back, have a little bit of a breathe, and just think, look, these guys are regular, consistent point scorers players in the Premier League. They can sometimes have bad game weeks or sometimes get a little bit unlucky. And that's exactly what I think happened with my team. A little bit of bad luck, a little bit of bad performances. And remember, these are just human beings. They're not robots. Even good players have bad games. Premiums have those off weeks. Remember that. Not every single player can continually score double-digit hauls every single week. Some weeks, they are unfortunately just going to pick up 2. That is just the nature of football. That is the nature of life. People are human. They're not robotic. They can't perform every single week. Especially with the knee-jerk transfers as well, would be another thing I would be just a little bit wary of. I think, you know, maybe you've seen a player, you've not, you know, Wirtz, for example, didn't have a great game week 1. A lot of people are rushing to get him out. But if he has a really good game week 2, you're going to be sat there going, damn, I really wish I kept him in. Then they've got Arsenal, which isn't ideal, but then they head into Burnley and Everton, and he could really cook in those fixtures as well. So my advice would just be to sit on your hands, unless you've got players that are injured, suspended, or didn't play in game week 1. Those would probably be the only players I would be looking to remove from my side, right? Everybody else, I would give at least another game week, maybe even another 2, to just sit there, judge, see how they perform in the next few game weeks. Of course, if they continue to disappoint, that'll be the period where you do get them out of the team. But for right now, I would just recommend just sitting on it. We've not got enough data, as you can see there. Let's actually see how some of these teams perform. Some of them maybe just had a bad game week. West Ham, for example, actually had one of the best XG conceded this week, but lost 3-0. So, maybe we're just kind of, making judgments. We've all been to a football game where a long shot's gone in and you've absolutely dominated the other team. But can you build a solid season narrative off that? No, you cannot. So let's just take our time. Let's not do anything rash, not take any hits. I personally would recommend, like I said, unless I've got a player that's injured, suspended, or didn't even play in game week 1, I would honestly just sit with that player and let's wait and see. However, there is one player that did really, really catch my eye, and I have been thinking about maybe bringing him in. And of course, I mean, it's going to be no surprise to you guys. It is Reijnders. I feel like for the price point of getting into a Manchester City attack that is usually so prolific within the Premier League, for 5.6 million at the time of me recording this, could just honestly be insane. And I do feel like, his ownership probably come game week 2 deadline, probably going to be close to like 30%. So is he becoming maybe, I don't want to use the word this early on, but essential? Maybe. And can I just sit here and keep watching him get those big scores and watch his price increase? Probably not. I'm starting to lose out on some value. So he is a player that I am thinking maybe we just kind of go in early on him, get him out of the way, and he's the one that we do make a transfer on this week. And you'll see who for in a second. But for right now, I'm still umming and ahhing. This one potentially might come down to the deadline. I think, Tottenham will give Manchester City a good game. So I am a little bit more sceptical of Reijnders. And I, again, would like to see some more data and build a stronger narrative around his performance, around his position. Because maybe it was one-off. Maybe he's going to play in a slightly different position in game week 2. Maybe in game week 3 when they've got Brighton away again, a different position. I want to see how it is. I also want to see what that rotation looks like with Champions League football as well, before, of course, jumping on Reijnders. But he is the one player that I am thinking about maybe smashing the button, the little glass button, and, of course, using him as a transfer for this week. But right now, I'm probably just going to sit on my hands and go with the team that rocked us into game week 1. Okay, wasting no time, let's dive into the team selection itself then. Starting off first with our defence. Again, there's a few issues here and a few players I potentially could bring in come the deadline. So, of course, make sure if you are new around here that you are hitting subscribe with bell notifications on so you will be notified when I do go live on Friday. I'm probably thinking about 12:30 up until maybe 5 o'clock potentially. We'll see how long we can last. But yeah, answering lots of questions, doing team reviews, always worth attending some of my deadline streams. So this is currently how the back line is going to line up. We're going to play Verbergen ahead of the Bravkra. If you look at a lot of the betting data that has been posted on social media over the past few days, it's actually got Brighton on some of them outperforming Burnley's expected kind of clean sheet numbers. So I'm happy to stick with Verbergen. I think Everton as well, watching that Leeds game, were really toothless, to be honest. They didn't really look like they had much going on. And I think Brighton will see that as a potential blueprint on how to set up defensively against, of course, Everton. They were very high, very good with the press. And, that's definitely something I could see Brighton doing with their youthful energy side. Going high on the press, restricting Everton chances, and it would be nice to, of course, get a Verbergen clean sheet. But, of course, we do have Dubravka there, but I am feeling a little bit sceptical on whether or not I do want to go for that double up in terms of Burnley defence this week. It's around a 30% chance of a clean sheet for them, and I would rather keep a Stev rather than going for the double bubble, in my personal opinion. I think, this is the reason we've got him. It is that 4 million week where we're going to have to, of course, play the 4 million defender. Hopefully, maybe gets the DEFCON. Hopefully maybe gets a clean sheet, but I'd rather just go for one than rely on two, obviously, Burnley defenders against Sunderland, who managed to score, of course, 3 goals in game week 1. Tarkowski, like I said, was very unfortunate not to actually come away with a 9, potentially 10-pointer if bonus, of course, did change in game week 1. Again, Brighton, they will cause some problems for Everton going forward, but I watched that Fulham-Brighton game and they, again, did seem a little bit toothless, like they had chances, but they weren't like anything to worry about, in my personal opinion. Of course, it is going to be the first game at the Bramley-Moore Stadium as well, so I think Everton are going to be really, really up for that fixture. But obviously with our side, we're probably going to be hoping for a nice 0-0 there. But James Tarkowski could, of course, just pick up DEFCON. He picked up 15 in game week 1. I could very easily see him do the exact same in game week 2 and come away with a nice cheeky 4-pointer. Anderson also nearly picked up DEFCON in game week 1. He got 8 defensive contributions rather than the 10, of course, required. The big debate I'm having is whether or not I do start Pedro Porro or Anderson. Now, looking at the clean sheet data, there's around a 10% difference. So, Ped Porro is currently on a 10% chance and Anderson is on a 20% chance. So, that 10% difference is currently swaying me. Of course, Anderson has the potential to go and get those defensive contributions, and his home defensive contributions are a lot more likely than the away ones looking at last season. So hopefully he can deliver that goods, and we have bench Ped Porro. But again, that might be one for the deadline with, of course, the Holy Coin taking into effect on that one. And then finally, we have Murillo. His defensive contribution numbers in game week 1 were really, really disappointing. So it is something I am going to have to monitor over the course of the next few game weeks. And if they do continue to, of course, disappoint, then maybe we're going to have to look at potential replacements that do, of course, pick up that DEFCON. Because at 5.5, if he's not getting the defensive contribution points, he isn't going to be justifying his value. So something to keep our eye on over the next few game weeks. But for now, he is going to remain within our side. Heading into the midfield, and it is as you were from game week 1. Of course, Reijnders maybe could come in for Tielemans. I do like that we went for Tielemans at 6. It now does, of course, give me that ability to go and maybe take a look at somebody like Reijnders. It also gives me a little bit of flexibility as well, because I, of course, can let Reijnders rise up to that 6 million price tag, maybe get a little bit more information and data around his minutes, around his position, whether or not he actually is going to be a good long-term pick within FPL as well, and obviously hold Tielemans. He's only at around 3%, so I can't see, there being a massive price drop for him at any point, because he's not one of those highly owned players, and the 1 or 2% that do, of course, maybe shift off him for Reijnders, I'm probably going to be in that camp anyway and probably do it at the same time. But it's not a bad fixture for, of course, Tielemans. Brentford look really, really poor defensively. Villa, very toothless, though, again. So I guess it's kind of, a clash of the Titans versus the immovable object. Which one is actually going to pay out in game week 2? Hopefully it is the Villa attack scoring some goals. They definitely need a little bit of a kick up the arse after game week 1. As you can see, we have gone for Mohamed Salah, captain. Obviously got that late goal in game week 1. Wasn't a great performance from him, but still a goal nevertheless from Mohamed Salah. His record against Newcastle is actually pretty good. It's 17 games, 18 goal contributions, and last season at St James's Park he managed to get himself 2 goals and an assist in an enthralling 3-3 clash. So maybe we might see similar things, obviously with the Alexander Isak situation, of course, bubbling over as well. There's a little bit more tension heading into that game, so I think it's got a real potential spicy atmosphere. There's lots going on. It does mean, though, however, that we are waiting for our captain to play on Monday night, which is a long time to, of course, be waiting, and of course there could be potential headaches there, and maybe some painful night's sleep as well if our other players don't, of course, pull through. Obviously, I want to talk about Florian Wirtz as well. Game week 1, it was disappointing. Of course, Gakpo and Ekitike looked a lot better options. We do have that option to drop down to Gakpo if, of course, Wirtz continues to disappoint. But I am going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He is new to the Premier League. I'm going to give him a few more weeks, see how he settles in. My big concern, though, is Newcastle were actually the best side for XG conceded against Aston Villa and really restricted them from creating any opportunities. However, Liverpool do feel like a different beast this season with the attacking talent that they've already added so far. So I am hoping that they can actually deliver the goods. Cole Palmer, again, another one who just didn't really shine in game week 1. A lot of people also feeling the pain of owning Cole Palmer in game week 1. So I'm not too disheartened. Again, West Ham did concede 3, but their XG conceded was quite good. I'm hoping this is a bit more of the Club World Cup Cole Palmer we do get to see. Of course, if he does continue to disappoint, there are so many options below him where we can, of course, drop to. I'm not going to take him out after one bad game week. We're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. The fixtures are definitely there, and I'm not going to be reactionary and knee-jerk, and, of course, look to flip that switch. Bruno Fernandes actually had a really good game. He created the most chances in game week 1, nearly hit DEFCON, so could have come away with a 4-pointer. Now he heads into his 2 good fixtures. In Fulham away, who didn't look great against Brighton, by the way. And then, of course, the Burnley fixture. in game week 3, which is of course where we might be looking to use our captaincy on him as well. So he's going to remain within the side, hopefully can hit DEFCON this week and maybe an attack and return along the way. And completing our lineup is of course going to be Ollie Watkins, the 9 million striker. We're going to leave him in there for now. The fixtures are still really good for Aston Villa. Again, I'm not going to be knee-jerky, I'm not going to be reactionary. It was one bad performance. Let's see how Aston Villa do against a much weaker opponent in my personal opinion. And of course, if we looked how Brentford performed in game week 1, it wasn't great. So I'm feeling a lot more bullish about my Aston Villa assets for the upcoming fixtures. We're going to stick with Watkins. I don't personally believe there was any standouts within the 7.5 million bracket. I know people are going to say Chris Wood. However, they've got Igor Jesus. They've got another forward coming in. And I do think his minutes are going to be at risk this season, with European football, of course, being on the horizon as well. And if you look to the international breaks as well for Chris Wood, he's always quite late back from New Zealand, again, because it is halfway across the world. Well, it literally is across the world, isn't it? So he's always usually quite late back, and they usually rest him or see maybe earlier substitutions. And I think with them having two other very strong contenders for forwards, they might just go, you know what, Chris, you take your time, mate. Sit that fixture out. Of course, we've got an international break coming up after game week 3 anyway, so I'm not rushing to bring in any of the 7.5s. I really don't like any of them. Gokares had a stinker, looked really bad. Isak looks like he's going to be trapped permanently forever at, of course, Newcastle. So I'm sat here and I'm thinking the only forward I would like is, of course, Haaland. That would be the only way I would get up to Haaland, would be downgrading, obviously, one of my midfielders and upgrading Watkins, which we can do in a few game weeks' time, of course, if things don't work out. Maybe looking around that game week 6 where Haaland faces Burnley. That might be the ideal hop-on point that we go for this strategy. But for right now, I am just going to stick with the lineup. Our other two strikers on the bench, of course, are going to be Mark Guehi and Junior. I don't expect either of these guys to start. They're probably just going to be bench fodder for this week. Let's take a look at how the team is rated then in Fantasy Football Hub's AI tool. Of course, if you want to go and check it out for yourself, I will leave a link in the description. It's currently given my team a 94% rating and 89% rating for this game week as well. Looking at the team as well, it's actually got it a little bit different to what I've got it. It's got Dubravka in goal ahead of Verbergen, so maybe that's something I do need to consider heading into this game week, maybe just whacking in Dubravka ahead of Verbergen. I'd be interested to hear what your guys' thoughts are on that one. But yeah, the Fantasy Football Hub, of course, rating that one there. Last video we did, or maybe the video before, the transfer targets video, it didn't want me to make any moves for REIJNDERS. Let's see if that is still the case, or if this move would actually improve the side. What is it giving it now? If we click make transfers, what is it saying? Optimize team, boom. It's still giving it the exact same rating. So that to me would suggest that I don't personally believe that this move is going to be optimal for the team or long-term going to be paying off. So I still think we're going to stick with Tielemans for now. Of course, things could change. I maybe could get cold feet on the deadline. Maybe, you know, some other comments coming around Pep in his press conference that might potentially, of course, sway me in my decisions. But for right now, this is how the team is going to be lining up for game week 2. If you did enjoy today's video, make sure you're liking, commenting, and subscribing, and I will see you in the next one.